Coming up on a special episode of Chasing the Natty, it is the Summa Cum Laude draft hosted by John Laub, the Gridiron Scholar. All of that and more after this.
Look downfield and Circus one-handed catches made.
Jones goes to the end zone. Oh, what a catch! Devontae Smith, touchdown Alabama.
Watch out for Mr. Robinson. This kid is going to be special and is already flashing.
This is Chasing the Natty, a college football fantasy podcast.
All right, welcome in everybody. This is Chasing the Natty. I am your host, Jared Palmgren, and on the other side of me, as always, is my faithful host, Mr. Xavier. Who are you? Who are you?
I'm not Xavier.
Who are you? Who do you work for? What do you do? And what have you done with Xavier?
I have captured Xavier and I put him in the closet for tonight's draft. Xavier, I'll bring him out if necessary. But tonight he spends it in the closet. So my name's Mitch. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so Mitch Hardt is going to be picking in the Summa Cum Laude draft with me tonight. He is a great guy. I've been talking to him for about the past 30 minutes to an hour. He's been great conversation, lots of great insight, and I can't wait to have him on tonight. So tonight we'll be part of, as I've been saying, the Summa Cum Laude draft hosted by John Laub, the Gridiron Scholar. If you haven't already, by the time this video comes out, the article that John Laub will be writing will be on Fantrack, so please go check it out. There's going to be lots of great insight information on that article. And so now I'll just go ahead and tell you what all this draft's going to incorporate. So this draft is of 12 teams, and I'll list off the people here participating. So of course we have Mr. Mitch Hardt just across from me at Ace Holes Rule. We have myself at CFF_Jared. We have Nicholas Allen from CFB Winning Edge. He is at CFB Winning Edge on Twitter. We have Nate Marchese at CFF Nate on Twitter. We have Mike Bainbridge at MBainbridgeCFF. Check out his stuff on the CFF site. We have Scott Bogman at Bogman Sports on Twitter. We have Eric Froton at CF Froton on Twitter. We have, of course, the Gridiron Scholar himself, John Laub at Gridiron Scholar 91. We have Dwight Peoples from the C2C crowd, who is at FF Peoples Champ. We have CFF Insiders, who is at Insider CFF on Twitter. Don't get those two confused like I just did. And finally, last but not least, we have Mr. Josh Chevalier from at CFF Guys. So, on top of all this, the roster makeup for tonight will be 2 QB, 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 flex, 1 defense and special teams, and 7 bench spots, and it will be half PPR. So now that I've said a lot here, Mitch, how you doing tonight, man?
Man, every day is a great day to be Mitch. I'm asked that all the time, how I'm doing. That's my response. I live a charmed life. So again, thanks for having me on. I've played fantasy for a long time. I actually won the 2005 college national championship in fantasy football. There were 14,000 of us in a site that's no longer up. It was called U Sports. So I had Colt Brennan and Ian Johnson, Ahmad Bradshaw, a host of Hawaii wide receivers. So it was a lot of fun. I've played for a long time, but real quick, and I'll ask you during our space in between selections, that the fantasy memory that I have the most is the first time that I lost my home league. We established a league in right out of college in 1991, 92 era. And I had the lead. I was up by 3 yards and they needed to just kneel. And the Falcons were kneeling and the guy had Terrence Mathis. And Jeff George looked to his left and said, check 180. And I knew right then I was going to lose. He threw a little hitch. Mathis got 7 yards and I lost on the last play of the season. Yes. So I've had great wins. but that was a tough loss. So yeah, man, college football is awesome. I got the number 1 pick. I'm going Malik Willis, dude. My first question to you: you picked second. Would you have taken Malik if I didn't take him?
Absolutely, I would have taken Malik. I mean, Malik's effectively a cheat code for this upcoming year. He's the only returning QB from last year that rushed for over 1,000 yards. If you know anything about fantasy, rushing QBs are the absolute cheat code in this sport. And Malik Willis has all the yards to back it up for that. On top of that, he had, I believe, 14 rushing touchdowns last year. So, but he had the rushing yards to back it up. So, because touchdowns are hard to predict, rushing yards are much easier to predict. And if you have that, Malik Willis is going to be the ultimate cheat code for fantasy this upcoming year. If you didn't take him there, I would have felt like I was getting a steal at the number 2 pick. So,
well, good.
But unfortunately, you will not be picking him there. So I will be taking Breece Hall after you.
Cool. Breece Hall, another good selection. I mean, solid running back in a system that has produced great rushing totals the past 6 or 8 years. David Montgomery, guy was really good at breaking tackles. And what's interesting is I watch a lot of Breece Hall. While he doesn't break tackles, it's because he doesn't get touched as often. Mm-hmm. He is shifty and can make that first guy miss. Takes it to the house. Breece Hall, I haven't had the pleasure of having him. I play against him then a couple of times a year. He is a guy who always seems to break a 50-yarder. So he's a foot on your neck kind of guy. It's not the kind of guy that you want to play against. So I have no problem with that selection. I would actually like them to dump it off a little more to him. We got half point PPR. While they don't throw the ball as much to him as they did Montgomery, he could catch it. I mean, He does well when they throw it to him. So I don't know. I think he might, and this sounds weird for an overall number 2 selection. I actually think the guy has one more gear in fantasy. I think he can even be better than he has been, and he's been really good. So
I mean, I agree. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And again, that's why I have him over a guy who I actually think is going to have more carries than him this upcoming year, and that's Mohamed Ibrahim, who's on pace. I did the math here. Mohamed Ibrahim was on pace for almost 340 carries last year with the way that Minnesota was touting him around out there. And I'm like, holy mackerel. But then I looked into Breece Hall a little bit, watched some tape of him, and I saw the potential he could have out of the backfield, catching out of the backfield. And I'm like, especially in a PPR format or half PPR, which I personally don't prefer, but even still, he's going to have insane value there. Okay, thank you. Somebody else who doesn't prefer PPR.
I don't like PPR. In my league that I run, we do yardage bonuses. Okay. Receiving yardage bonuses. You get 5 points when you get 100 yards. You get an additional 5 at 150, and then the final tier is if you get 200 yards, you get an additional 5. I don't like people who catch 13 balls for 47 yards. Mm-hmm. It gets on my nerves. I don't play like that on purpose. I'll play like that and adjust my draft style, but I do not think it's indicative of fantasy greatness. So I do not play that way. So I don't like PPR.
I mean, for me, fantasy should reflect how much a person helps their team out on the field. And If you catch a ball for 0 yards, you didn't help your team at all. But in a PPR format, you've now got the equivalent of 10 yards. And to me, that just doesn't work.
My latest league, we're doing 0.5 for first downs.
Okay. I like that. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's a little bit different, but I would rather that than anything else. So
yeah, actually, I you know what? I might incorporate that, or I might pass it around some of the leagues I'm hosting this year. I think that'll be a great addition for people to have.
Yeah.
All right, so we've begun the draft here.
Malik! That was super easy.
And mine is also super easy. I will be taking Mr. Breece Hall. Awesome. And so now we get to see what everybody else gets to pick. So
yeah.
Again, I won't ask you who you're picking up, but what are you kind of aiming for on this next go around?
So when I'm at the turn, I definitely want a strength, and So I like to go either running back, or wide receiver,
Mm-hmm.
In this format, I would never go quarterback. Quarterback is so deep. So I'm looking at, running back, or receiver, if people fall. In my preparation for this draft, it feels like if receivers come back to us, that's what I'll do. I'll take receivers if they come back, if there's value. But for me, it's all about value. We'll see who slips back. What's interesting is where we select, you almost get you rarely get someone that comes all the way back to you that you would have selected. That's why I prefer to pick in the middle and then take risks based on what other people are drafting. But you and I aren't going to get that. No one is going to go 24 selections with the cast of characters that are in this draft. So no one's ever going to come back to us. So you just kind of got to make do. So I want someone in the, Calvin Austin. I'd like for him to fall, maybe.
Yeah, I think I think that's definitely possible.
Probably wishful thinking. Yeah, I mean, it could go. I mean, we'll see. But that's what I want to do. How about you? You went running back. Are you gonna try to get a quarterback next? Is that what you would try to do? What's your strategy coming up?
No, actually, I kind of like the quarterbacks that you can usually get in the kind of the round 5-6 range. I think you can find some definite value there. So I tend to try to stack up on wide receiver and quarterback as early as I can in these drafts. So again, like you said, I'm hoping a good wide receiver kind of falls back to us in the second round. There's one in particular that I'm really kind of eyeing on that I'm probably a little higher on than everybody else, but I'm absolutely willing to take in the second and third round, definitely the third round, because I think at the second pick, I can definitely get him back to me between your picks, unless you're also secretly high on this guy, in which case I'm going to get burned, but that's all right.
I guess we'll see.
We will definitely find out. But again, not a bad option here would have been for me to kind of double up on running back. See if any of my running back ones kind of fall back to me here. So
the running back class to me is top heavy, and then there is a tier of, I would say, looking at my list, maybe 18 running backs to me that are all about the same. So I will likely just take the leftovers on that list of 18. That's probably what I'll do because I feel that they're all about the same. So
that's fair.
What do you think of the picks so far? Rattler, DJ, and Sincere were the last three. I love McCormick, workhorse running back. Both of those quarterbacks, obviously from systems, that are really good. Any of those picks stand out to you?
Well, David Bell just went off at the 9. That doesn't surprise me at all. You usually see about one or two wide receivers kind of go off here in the back end of the first round. The pick that actually surprised me the most so far, and this might sound crazy, but again, we were just talking about him. Mohamed Ibrahim went off before Bijan Robinson. I've been seeing Bijan go ahead of Mohamed a lot recently, and I think people are starting to realize that Mohamed, while Bijan, I think, definitely has the higher ceiling, Mohamed already has just such a solid floor there with the amount of carries that he gets per game. So that's the one that kind of sticks out to me right there. No, this is about right for the amount of QBs going off. Usually you might find DJ go to the second round, but nothing super surprising me. Kevin Marks going at 10 just now from Kevin Brown. Yep. I'm knocking him slightly right now, not just because of the coaching change, but also that coaching change also basically took their entire O-line with them. And while I'm glad that they hired a defensive-minded coach, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Again, losing that much on the offensive line, losing that much on the offensive line is probably going to hurt him a bit.
We spoke about some of the strategy in drafts offline before we began. Kevin Marks is an interesting guy. First, if he has a good season, which I think he will. I don't think he's the 10th best fantasy guy in this draft, but I do think he's going to have a good season. He'll be the leading rusher in Buffalo history, and they have had a storied history for running backs. But what's interesting is he's always the backup. He's always the 2. Now, why is that? Is it nerves? Is it work ethic? What has kept him from being that guy. And he should have been the guy over Jarrett Patterson. Jarrett Patterson was not as highly touted. He was a smaller back. Marks was the lead back in camp, and he lost that job. Now, Jarrett Patterson ended up being good. So the thing that I want to look at with Buffalo is I think I'll zag. I'll take a Buffalo backup running back with the idea that maybe Kevin Marks just isn't that good.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I think that value of snagging the Buffalo the 2 on the Buffalo running back chart is better than taking Marks with the 10th pick overall. So that's my take on Marks. I will not be selecting him in any draft.
Yeah, I would say he's going a little too highly for me.
In like the 4th round. Yeah, it's too rich for my blood.
I was in love with the idea of drafting Jarrett Patterson last year and everything, and he proved it. Once the Mac finally started getting up and kicking, he had that monster 88-point game against Kent State, and I was like, that's exactly what I was expecting out of him the entire year. It looks like they suspended the draft a little bit here.
I saw that. I had Dustin Crum and Isaiah McCoy in that game, and they both did really well too. But yeah, the star of that game was definitely Patterson.
I love Crum.
Of course. Oh, he's nails. The guy is awesome.
I definitely love Crum.
Somebody wanted Crum. That was the. I guess.
Yes, it looks like CFF insiders having a hard time connecting there, and he auto drafted Sam Howell, which I was very concerned about. I was like, or not concerned, but I was like, Sam Howell in the first, really? No, Sam Howell is not who he wanted to pick there. We backed it up a little bit. It looks like he's going to go Crum here. He does go Crum.
Yes.
So that makes a bit more sense. I love Dustin Crum. I would have drafted him in my dynasty league this upcoming year if it not for the fact that I would only be getting 1 year out of him, and I felt like there's another QB or two that I could gotten a few more years out of.
You spoke about Malik being the only 1,000-yard rusher, and I believe it's because Crum just didn't get to play that many games.
I would agree. You're 100% right. Crum absolutely would have gotten up there with him.
Yeah, Crum is good. His running style. I had Crum, so I watched it, and bless his heart. Just, man, it is a lot of legs. It's a lot of legs moving. So anyway, he's cool though. He's a very good fantasy guy.
I've heard very different things. What are your? I know you're also an NFL guy. So what do you think of his NFL prospects? Do you think he'll be able to make it or no?
Oh, and look, Calvin Austin got picked, so he didn't come back.
That doesn't surprise me. I know for a fact Kevin goes for Calvin Austin.
Yeah, Dustin Crum will be drafted, but I do not see the accuracy in his mid-range game to be a starter. So no, I don't think so.
Okay, well, he'll make a great backup someday, I believe. Then
I do, and I mean he's a hard worker. Isaiah Spiller, that's a often selected man. Traylon Burks, yeah, the receivers don't seem like they are going to come back to us.
Yeah, Burks was one I was kind of eyeing up on, seeing if I could get him.
Jalen Robinson, a lot of people aren't as high on him as I am. I was hoping to get him a little later. Man, I mean, right now, that seems a little early. Gosh, golly. I like Jalen Robinson, but doggone, man, that's dang early.
Yeah, he's usually a third round guy. Actually,
great value right there. Bryce Young, best pick in the past few picks. Bryce Young, great pick.
I would definitely agree. Looking at it, Jalen Robinson on average does go here at the end of the second round according to my ADP sheet, which, by the way, plug in. If y'all want access to my CFF ADP/ECR sheet, it is only $30, but if you want a discount of 50% off, all you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or show that you are followed on Spotify, as well as give us a shout out on Twitter, and you can just DM me those or email me at cffjared@gmail.com. So with that quick plug-in out of the way, we got another wide receiver off the board. Reggie Roberson Jr. is gone. So, all right, Marvin Mims is gone. I'm going to go ahead. I think I'm going to double down a running back here. Let me take a look at who we have available here. I got 50 seconds here. So let's see. All right. All right. I think I'm going to go with a guy who I know has a very, very well. I have the safe floor in Breece Hall, so I'm probably going to go with a guy here who is who has a bit more upside than I would typically go for a running back. Maybe I got to make a decision here. Actually, let me look at my quarterbacks here. Nope, I don't want any of those. You know what? I'll just go with another guy who I know is going to get a ton of carries this year. His coach said so himself. I'm going to go Chris Rodriguez, running back out of Kentucky.
Awesome, man. I like that pick. He is a better running back than he has been fantasy running back, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I like his upside. I think he's going to be an NFL player as well. So I dig that selection. Honestly, this is I shared with you that I wanted to have a strength on double picks. I feel that I'm getting great value with my first selection of Letty Brown.
There you go.
Letty Brown gets the ball. He's the touchdown guy for West Virginia. My buddy and I drafted him in a league 2 years ago. We got a lot out of Letty Brown, so I like him. And then a favorite of mine that it seems like every year I have to pay just a little bit more, but I'm going to go back to the well and pick Ronnie Rivers.
There you go.
Ronnie Rivers been very good for Fresno for me in the past. I like Ronnie Rivers. So
I somehow missed that he was still available. I probably should have gone him. That's all right. It happens.
I like Rodriguez, but Letty Brown and Ronnie Rivers, I'm down with that. Very established guys. This is not a keeper league, so I dig it. Who you rolling with now, man?
So I'm not going to take any more chances here. I'm going to go wide receiver because I think that well drives up very, very quickly. So I'm going to go with a guy I'm probably higher on than most people, but I love what I've been hearing out of camp this upcoming season. I'm going to go Jalen Tolbert, wide receiver out of South Alabama. The connection I've been hearing between him and Jake Bentley has been phenomenal. In almost every single one of the spring games, he's had over 100 yards and two or three touchdowns. And I'm like, if I can get that every single week out of a wide receiver, and I do think that Jake Bentley, which this might be crazy to say, but I do think he's the best quarterback that Jalen Tolbert's had to play with at South Alabama.
There's no question that that's the case. I like Tolbert there, actually. I tell you, the next pick, though, I just don't invest this much in quarterback, but I would have taken CJ Stroud. So I'm not surprised that he came off the board right then. I was looking at Stroud. I like your Tolbert selection. I think Tolbert is very solid. They have a sissy schedule all the time, so he gets the ball a lot. He's a good guy with PPR as well, because I think there was like one game last year where he didn't have 5 catches, or so he's money when it comes to that. So I like that.
Oh yeah.
Another wide receiver though that I wanted to come back. Corey Rucker. I watched a lot of Arkansas State. I hated the Lane Hatcher.
Me too, dude.
The swapping of quarterbacks that drove me bananas. So, but I had what was his name? Jonathan Adams last year. He was my guy, and Rucker was very good. Rucker stole some points from me, so I like that. So Rucker and Stroud back to back. I like those.
I would have CJ Stroud in my upper tier quarterbacks, if not for the fact that he has not been named the starter yet, and I do think he will be the starter at the end of the day. However, I am slightly worried about Kyle McCord because I thought he had about. I'm not worried about Jack Miller. I think Jack Miller is a clear number 3 in that race, regardless of what Ryan Day says. I don't think it's a 3-man race. I think it's a 2-man race at this point. I do think CJ Stroud will be the winner at the end of the day, but Kyle McCord is just good enough to have me just a little bit worried. So I'm not off CJ Stroud, but he's a little bit farther back than I would normally take him. Let's see who else just went off the board here. We got Brendan Armstrong. A bunch of QBs just went off. Brendan Armstrong, Sam Howell, Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel's been dropping lower and lower in drafts as the season's been going on. Why do you think that is, Mitch?
Offensive change, the change in the change in the coaching staff. While they would be insane to mess with that offense, it happens. And that's why, again, like the Jalen Robinson pick earlier, like I really like him, but man, that was aggressive. And this Dylan Gabriel, getting him here, I do think is about right. I don't think you're getting value with that selection, but I mean, it's a good pick. Jarek Broussard. I live in Colorado. I live south of Denver. I was hoping to get him in my home league. I will certainly have Broussard. I will not let that happen in my home league. What do you think about my Buffalo? What do you think about Broussard?
I love him. He really caught my eye in the beatdown that y'all took to Texas in the bowl game, unfortunately. But that was where I really kind of saw him for the first time, and I'm like, this kid can be explosive. And I think, and I saw that, I'm like, he's only a sophomore this upcoming. He's a sophomore this upcoming year, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm like, he's got years to work with and everything. Dadgummit, another QB goes off the board. There goes Desmond Ridder. Yeah, I like Broussard a lot
this time. That was a good pick too with Ridder. I like Ridder too. Keep going.
That was good. So I think I'm gonna actually. I'm thinking about what I'm going to be doing this upcoming pick because I got only got a few more picks until me. Let's see, Zay Flowers went off the board. Dadgummit, that was one I was really hoping would come back to me at wide receiver there.
Yeah, I'll pass on Zay. I watched it a lot. He's got talent. I don't think they work him into the offense well enough.
I'm hoping that changes this upcoming year, especially with Jerkovich going into the second year.
It could be. No, I just I did not like what I saw philosophically from them. So at this again,
well, it's better than Odazio. I can say that much, at least for wide receivers.
No, it certainly is. No, it certainly is. So yeah, I need to freshen my wide receiver list because that's where I'm headed.
I was going to do my queue down here. Like I have that blocked out and everything. It's just going by too fast. I can't update it quickly enough to where I'm just going with my rankings I have here. All right, so Nate Marquezzi's up on the board. Mechie was another one I was hoping to grab here. I was hoping you followed me.
That was a good selection as well.
Dadgummit, Marquez. I was looking for Grayson McCall too. Dadgummit. All right,
McCall's good. That's what I'm saying. It's very difficult to, man, when you're this far back in these drafts. It's a long wait.
It is a very, very long wait. So all right, let me see what we got here. Wide receivers where my mind's immediately going, and all right, let's see. We're at round 4, and Jalen Cropper's still on the board. That's definitely a name I'm looking out for here. Let's see, quarterback Carson Strong is a name I definitely want, but I definitely want a rushing QB to probably start things off. You know what?
He comes back from Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
I do like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and he's a name I'm definitely looking at right here. At 20 seconds left. Dadgummit. Running back. No, I don't really need anything. All right, 15 seconds left. We're probably going to go... Yeah, we'll go Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
All right. Yeah, DTR, man. That was a good pick with DTR. On some mock drafts that I've seen, I think you got a good deal there. Well, man, this one, the first pick is doggone easy. Tell me, why is Romeo Doubs still available?
I'll tell you exactly why. Romeo Doubs, as soon as Elijah Canyon came onto the scene or not Elijah Canyon, that's from Auburn. As soon as Elijah Cooks came in for one game, Elijah Cooks outproduced him. And then as the year went on, the emergence of Torrey Horton really cut into Romeo Doubs' game, as well as the emergence of Cole Turner. You saw in those last 5 games, Romeo Doubs was not the same player that he was last 4 games. First 5 games, he was incredible. So I have been fading Romeo Doubs a little bit. I did consider him here for a second, and I do love his quarterback definitely more than him, and he's definitely somebody I'm taking a look at here.
Well, then let's do that. I'll go Carson Strong. You talked me into it. If you want the fantasy points off of Nevada's offense, you have to go Carson Strong. In my opinion, he has almost 0 rushing upside there, but I do think Carson Strong, if you just want a safe bet on that Nevada offense, he's the guy to go with. So who are you going to go with here now with your second pick? Yep. So, okay, if I'm not going Doubs, then the next 2 guys on my list are Justin Hall and Braylon Sanders. And I loved what I saw out of the Ole Miss offense. Elijah Moore has left us, so I'm going to go Braylon Sanders. What do you think of that?
I think that you are taking him where he should be valued. I do not understand the people who are asking at this point, like, oh, who's going to be the wide receiver 1 at Ole Miss? I've seen enough. It's going to be Braylon Sanders. I know Ja'Cour Pearson's an incredibly talented athlete coming into there. I like what I saw out of him out of Western Kentucky when he actually played there. Jonathan Mingo, I think, is going to be a great deep threat for Ole Miss, but it's going to be Braylon Sanders going to get targeted after target after target in this offense. Clearly, him and Matt Corral have built something, and you saw it at the tail end of last year after Elijah Moore opted out of the remainder of the season. I think that is an incredible pick for you there that's your second wide receiver you've grabbed?
No, that's just my first.
That's your first. Yeah. Well, so yes. I think he'll be a great high floor wide receiver.
Sanders,
shoot, it's my pick. I just realized. All right.
Oh no, we're going. And you need to select. Yes.
We're gonna go Preston Hutchinson. I'm gonna double down on QB here. I'm gonna grab Preston Hutchinson, rushing QB out of Eastern Michigan. I completely forgot that I was back up there. I forgot. I'm not used to this being.
We need to pay more attention to the draft.
Yeah, no joke.
And then Jerry and Ely, I think this is, in my opinion, a little too early for that selection.
I'm a little lower on Jerry and Ely than other people, mostly due to the fact that I think this is going to be a very pass-heavy offense. And while Jerry and Ely is going to get a lot of passing targets, I believe, I don't know. I just don't think that he'll be that main guy to own on this Mississippi State offense.
So the last 3 games for Braylon Sanders in our scoring format, 16.1, 15.7, and 21 points. Yeah, I think I did really well there. I think that was a good time to listen to an expert and not pick Romeo Dubes. So yeah. I think you were right, man. I think I got a better guy.
And don't get me wrong, I like Dubes. And Jalen Cropper was a guy that I was also kind of thinking about.
I could have easily have just taken him and been totally happy.
I'll be honest, I panicked a little bit. If I had thought about it for about 5 seconds more, I probably would have taken Cropper over Hutchinson there. Hutchinson, not that he would have made it back to me, but he had a better chance of making it back to me than Jalen Cropper did.
Cropper, last 3 games of the season, had 450 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, yeah, I mean, ain't nothing wrong with Cropper. That was a good pick. Valladay, I like Valladay a lot. I already had running back, so that was a good. How about Slovis? USC is not what it used to be. They're still pretty good offense. I kind of think this is a little too early for Slovis. What do you think?
I am not as high on USC's offense for this upcoming year as a lot of people are. I am just not a big believer in Slovis. Like, a lot of people talking about like how he beat out JT Daniels. No, he didn't beat out JT Daniels. JT Daniels got injured. He got injured for the rest of the year. Keaton Slovis came in, played well enough for them to say, all right, we don't want to rock the boat. We're going to keep him here. And JT, you're probably going to have to find another option somewhere. But when you go back and look at like where he's passing, a large, and I mean large amount of where he's passing comes less than 10 yards down the field. Lots of short passes. Like, he's not this kind of gunslinger that I think a lot of people would kind of expect him to be in this, what, quote unquote, air raid offense that USC's got going on. And so now a lot of people will then point to the amount of weapons that he has, and I do agree. Drake London's going to be phenomenal this upcoming year. I do think
that guy's had plenty of talent around him. Slovis, I mean, Amon St. Brown and Vaughn.
You're right.
Those guys are good. So no, I am definitely not going to give him some kind of mulligan on talent. They have talent, and he's just not that good. Jalen Berger just was selected a couple of picks ago, and I had him marked as a guy where if he came back, I was gonna select him. I think at this point of the draft, that was a good selection.
I think that was a great selection. I am kind of curious as to how Chez Mellusi might affect that backfield, because again, we saw last year what happens when Wisconsin kind of breaks up their running back room more than what they're expecting. Now, granted, Berger's coming back with experience, so I think he will get that starting role out of this bunch. Cole Turner was just taken in the 6th round. Wow.
That's too early.
I'm just going to say,
I know we have a tight end league, but gosh golly, dude. Too rich for my blood.
Is it tight end premium? Did I miss that?
Well, we're playing with the tight end, so yeah, I guess. I mean,
Fair enough. But
it's a little too early for me. There's a solid group of tight ends that all average around 12 points a game. I don't think it's worth. Yeah, he averaged 16, so 4 more points on a position. I guess. I mean, it's not a terrible selection, but that's way much rather than I was going to do it.
I'd much rather grab a tight end out of that group of tight ends you're talking about 6 rounds from now. I'd much rather grab one there than draft him as high as the 6th round here.
Yeah.
All right. Let me think about who I'm possibly going to pick up here, so I don't panic like I did last time.
Yep. All right. So what position you're looking at?
So I probably should go wide receiver because that's the only position group I haven't really filled out here. So let me take a look at who I have coming up here. Justin Hall, you mentioned there. I think, honestly, if he makes it back to me here, that's an easy choice for me. But Travell Harris is another great one here out of Washington State that I think is going to be phenomenal this upcoming year, especially now that Jaden DeLora is now back on that roster. And we don't have to worry about Garantano starting over there. I do believe Travell Harris will be a great fantasy asset to own this upcoming year. He averaged 19.4 points last year. Justin Hall also averaged over 20 points this last year. So I think if either one of those two guys make it back to be here, unless they're both taken right here, I think they'll be an easy choice for me.
I like both those picks here. I think both of those guys are guys to get right now. I'm looking at probably a wide receiver and running back combo.
All right.
Is what I'm looking at. So I like Harris. I like Jaden Wally of
all right, so I'm definitely
State.
getting one of my two guys.
Yeah.
So
I think Deuce Vaughn. Huh? I'm not a big Deuce Vaughn guy.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and grab Justin Hall here. So now we're on to you.
Awesome. So Justin Hall, let me mark him off. That was a good selection. Let me go to wide receiver. I'll pick the other guy with Harris. And I do like the quarterback situation there. So I'm fine with that. And Harris, I feel I get just a little bit of value. I had him tagged as a fifth round guy, and I got him at the last pick of the sixth. So I'm good with that.
Sounds good.
Let's see if there's any good value at running back. So
I see a couple of guys who I think are great values here. See if you grab any of these guys.
I have two guys in mind. And let me check out Tuggle. I like old Tuggle. I had him a couple of times. And let me just make sure. I'm going to go back to the well one more time on a guy. And I'm going to go Bryant Koback of Toledo.
Bryant Koback, I think, is a great one. I mean, just if there's one thing people need to learn, invest in the MAC. Just invest in the MAC. Like, yes, they are defensively challenged. It pays off massively. So let me go look at my wide receivers here real quick, just to make sure there's nobody here that I'm. So I'm trying to decide between these two. I'm trying to decide which I'm going to go running back or wide receiver here. I'm trying to decide which group am I more happy with, who would possibly fall back to me. And I'm going to say that I'm going to go ahead and grab another wide receiver here. And I think I'm probably just going to go ahead and grab. All right. So real quick, Jordan Addison or Chris Bell? Who do I go with?
Addison.
All right, perfect. Oops, put him in my queue. All right, went Jordan Addison there. I actually really am liking this Pittsburgh offense a little bit more and more each time I kind of go back to look at it. I think with a senior quarterback coming back with Kenny Pickett, we kind of know what we got in him, but he has some weapons to work with Jordan Addison, and we got Taysier Mack there as well, and I think those are two good options for him. And on top of that, you don't really have like a running back that's really kind of separated itself from the pack, so I do think that Pittsburgh will be one of those teams that'll probably fall behind earlier in games than you're kind of expecting, and thus you're going to see a lot more passing attack. And Jordan Addison is a ball hog. He's only a sophomore.
2/3 of his games, he had 7 or more catches.
Perfection.
I mean,
exactly.
What do you want? I mean, that's we're talking. We're in the 7th round of a draft, and you get a guy who routinely catches 7 passes in a game. Look, the offense doesn't have to be very good. That is a guy that it revolves around. So I dig that. That was a good selection.
I appreciate you kind of nailing that down for me. If you don't mind, we can talk about the other guy I was thinking about there, Chris Bell. He is going too late in my opinions in a lot of drafts, because Nate Marquez said this on the Campus Canton podcast a couple months ago, where he said, like, you want to have the number one wide receiver in the PJ Fleck offense. And I do believe Chris Bell will be the number one wide receiver. Again, a lot of people are kind of like hoping another one of these kind of younger guys kind of step up. But I don't know. Chris Bell strikes me as kind of the senior leadership in that wide receiver room, and he will be that guy to step up for this next year. What do you kind of think there?
Well, and again, with him, it's a guy who's already had production. So the offense is good, and he has had his moments in it being a auxiliary piece. So the downside, if you haven't been able to break into the lineup, is there anyone with any talent behind him? That might scare me. The thing is, those guys that have been in front of him are nails. Like Rashad Bateman is spectacular. So, when I look at that, I look at the folks that people have backed up, and it's okay to be a backup for a minute if you're backing up first-round NFL talent, and he has been. So I like it. That's definitely a guy that will be on our short list here in a minute to select.
I would have, again, I usually don't go wide receiver at flex.
For A&M, Aeneas Smith for A&M has wide receiver and running back eligibility. I was hoping
not
he was going to come back.
Not true. On Fantrax, he is only listed as a running back for this upcoming year.
That's terrible because he is going to be wide receiver.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he is the number one wide receiver on A&M.
Yeah, that is terrible. I didn't know that. Well, that really kills his value.
Yeah, we found that out a couple of drafts ago and everything, and everybody once they saw. I know.
I wanted Chris Smith,
dude. Chris Smith. No. You wouldn't have gotten him. Chris Smith probably would have been on my roster on this next turn. I love Chris Smith. You are talking about a guy who is more explosive than Elijah Mitchell or Trey Regis last year, and is probably going to inherit at least 70% of their carries. He is a potential league winner there. And Eric Froton, congratulations to you, sir. That was a hell of a pick right there.
Man, I wanted him, and I just have been looking at lists thinking, yeah, he'll be around. I'll take him and get some value later. Man, so just a lesson, okay, that I share with people too. So many of us draft from lists. You get to see what other people do, and you say, hey, this is, this guy's more of a 7th rounder. I don't need to take him until, the 7th or 8th. But if you want a guy, pick him. And we shouldn't have left that guy there. That was a very good selection.
There's another running back hopefully coming back to me here that I am really hoping I can get some value on here. You actually mentioned him in your last bit, and I was real hesitant. I'm like, you might value him highly. I definitely value him highly. If you ever listen to my show, I love Demontre Tuggle. And to me, he is a top 12 running back in my opinion. And to see him go so late in these drafts, I'm like, he's insane value to me. Like, we're in the 8th round. We're getting it to the 8th round here. If he makes it back to me here in the 8th round, I have to take him. Like, I try not to take the same guys over and over again in each draft, but I have to grab Tuggle. All aboard Tugboat, baby. All that.
Tuggle is fun. I had him in his there was your Ottman Bell. There you go. There
goes Ottman Bell. So maybe it was a good decision to consider him.
You could certainly. No, this is the time. That's a good value. I mean, that it's good offense, good value. That's a good pick. There have been middle of the draft. There's so much hay to be made in the middle of the draft. And a lot of people wander during the middle of the draft. It's like they get tired. There's been some really good picks. And with this crowd, this is what you would expect. These guys know what they're doing. I mean, most of you folks are in the media. I am no longer a media guy, but yeah, this is a good draft. It's been an honest draft. So you can't expect, again, especially in the positions that we're drafting, that people are going to come back. But God dang it, that Chris Smith one. I kind of had him in my back pocket as my first guy off the bench, and I was going to brag about it. He was a answer to one of the questions that we were posed. He was my super sleeper, was Chris Smith. All right. So yeah, I let him go too long. That was an error in judgment. I mean, looking back, I guess I should have picked him instead of Kovac. I like Toledo's offense. They run the ball well. He's not going to have to share as much time, and I don't feel. Brennan Presley was my breakout wide receiver. He has been selected as well. CJ Stroud, my breakout quarterback. That's kind of cheating. He's been selected. And then my Heisman guy's been selected, obviously, with Bryce Young. So
Oh, you put Bryce Young as your Heisman. I'll mention who
did.
I put down for my guys, but I'm actually up to pick it. Dad, gummit! Tuttle just went off the board right before me.
Man, that's terribly disappointing, dude.
That is extremely disappointing. Christ.
Wow. That hurts. We've been talking about that dude for 10 minutes.
Alrighty, so I gotta go running back here though, I'm gonna take a guy here who I normally wouldn't take in a draft because he's been going too high, but it's 8th round, and I'm gonna get the guy who's the most likely to be the number 1 running back for Ohio State this upcoming year, and that's Master Teague. I understand.
You took Master Teague. Don't do it. The freshman is going to take too much time. He's
understand.
Hey, it's 8th round.
It's 8th round. It's 8th round.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
He was getting taken way too early on this year. All right, I'll let you make your picks real quick. We'll discuss Master Teague more because clearly we got some emotional reactions there.
Yes, that was something else there. I'm a little surprised by that. Okay, so I could fill out my starters at wide receiver, but honestly, I don't like any of those guys. So I think, I'm going to just go with a favorite pick of mine. And I'm going to take a tight end and go Sean Dykes. I've watched Memphis for a long time. I like Dykes. He's not really a tight end, so it's kind of a cheater pick. I may even write about him as one of these selections. I like those guys who play a position that don't really play a position. So I'm going to go Dykes there. I'm going to leave my wide receiver hole on purpose, again, because I don't think the value is there necessarily. And I am going to go quarterback, and I'm going to take Emory Jones of Florida.
Ooh.
You're an SEC guy. What do you think about Emory Jones, man?
First, let me take my backup quarterback here. I'm going to take a guy who I think has been falling too far, and that's Jake Haener out of Fresno State.
Yeah, that was who I was going with. That was my flip. So tell me, why is Emory Jones not a good selection?
So I just haven't seen it with his passing ability yet. I know that a lot of people are excited about another rushing QB under Dan Mullen, and I get it. Again, people are having Dak Prescott flashbacks, and they're like, okay, I understand, but I just haven't seen the passing ability yet. His performance in the Cotton Bowl against Oklahoma, which Oklahoma has a better defense now, I'll give him that. But it's still not the greatest defense in the world for you to. Oklahoma's defense is not an excuse to me to have a bad performance as much as Emory Jones did in that game. Now, granted, Kyle Trask also had a poor performance in that game. Everything was off kind of there. I just don't see Emory Jones being worth the value that people are placing on him for this upcoming year. A lot of their best wide receivers just went off to the draft. Now they have some good options behind him. I'm a big Jacob Copeland guy. I do. Yes. A lot of people hyping up Xavier Henderson, Justin Shorter. I think that they can reload, but I'm not sure that they will. That's my hesitancy on it.
Cool. Okay. The way I look at it, if you get a running quarterback in a decent offense and as your backup, that you're doing a pretty good job.
I would not disagree.
Yeah, when looking at those quarterbacks, Malik Cunningham and Max Duggan were also selections, but I honestly think that Emory Jones can outrun both of those guys. So I kind of went with those three I wanted a running quarterback as my third quarterback. I already have Willis and Strong. Both of those guys are good. So obviously in this format, I wouldn't start Emory Jones very often, but I thought, let's give it a roll. Running quarterback, good offense. They did lose a lot of talent. And that's why, and Emory Jones ain't that good. That's why I got him where I got him. Because if Emory Jones was good, he would have went in the 3rd round. He's just not. He's average.
I would definitely not disagree. So let's talk about Master Teague here. So you were telling me no, don't do it, and also Nicholas Allen here also gave me a big yikes for the fact that I had to take Teague there because he took Tuggle, and I did want Tuggle very badly. But when it comes to Teague, I am very well aware of Travion Henderson. The dude is a monster. I am not saying that he is not going to be in the rotation for Ohio State this upcoming year, but I would still say that the person who has the best chance of being that number one is still Master Teague for now, because Master Teague to me still does have the talent behind him. He is yes, he's been injured to hell and back, and I do think that it's probably taking him. It is probably going to knock him in his value, which is why I was okay taking him here in the 8th round. Again, a lot of this has to do with the fact that he was here in the 8th round. Earlier this summer, you were seeing him go off in like the 2nd and 3rd round. I would never have taken them there whatsoever.
Yes.
But to me, he still has the best chance to be number one running back in Ohio State's offense. And if he is, it's going to be more than worth an 8th round pick for him. And so that's kind of where I'm going with that there. He was the highest rated running back I had left on my board, so I just went ahead and took him. So now you tell me, why do you hate Master Teague?
Okay, I hate Master Teague because he just isn't as talented as the Ohio State running backs in front of him. So I already discount him. 2, the guy behind him seems to be like he is that guy. So when I look at all these great Ohio State running backs who have been fantasy stars for years, he doesn't look like it. The youngster does. That's 1. 2, I'm not a big believer in perseverance when it comes to fantasy football. Okay. And Master Teague has had to overcome a lot. And for a young man, Lou Nichols, dang good pick right there. For a young man to have to overcome adversity, it really weighs on them mentally. And I just wonder if maybe it's gotten to him and maybe the young kid's going to take his job. You picked him 1 slot earlier than I would have. And what I mean is, like, having Master Teague as your first guy off the pine, I think is a good pick. Having him at your flex, I think is overpaying.
You know, I do think that's very fair for you to kind of argue there. I would probably agree with you there that if I had picked, oh good Lord, I'm up in a couple of picks here. So I've
Casey Thompson
while I've been worried about wide receiver and running back.
Porter, another really good pick. Go ahead.
That is a good pick. While I've been worried about wide receiver and running back, I have completely almost neglected the fact that tight ends are going much earlier in this draft than they typically have been. So I probably need to go ahead and grab
everybody with Dykes. I did.
I think you did. Dykes going second off the board there. So I'm probably going to have to grab a tight end here on this turn.
Oh, Baby Gronk was just picked. I love Baby Gronk. Probably
Baby Gronk is pretty great.
Fantasy player as a real player, but that was a good. I like Baby Gronk.
Alrighty, so looking at my running back room and everything, again, I said it before earlier. I'm going to say it again here. Invest in the MAC, and that's why I'm just going to go ahead and grab Ladarius Jefferson here as my first running back on my bench. I just think he's good value here in the not 9th round, 10th round we're at this point. So I'll go ahead and let you make your 2 picks.
Cool. All right, so man, some good selections here at quarterback. There are a lot of quarterbacks right now that I have ranked that I don't feel are worthy of selecting them, and I'll probably be complaining about this in a minute. I'm going to go with a guy that I'm hoping gets to the NFL to play with his dad, and that's Frank Gore Jr.
There you go.
Yeah, Frank gets the rock. I have no problem putting him in as one of my guys. He had 2 out of the last 4 games. Last season he had 100 yards rushing. So I like to build my bench rather evenly. And again, I am not going to take a wide receiver. There are guys in a minute that I'm going to take. So I'm going to look at these beautiful quarterbacks that are available at this juncture. And I'm going to go with a fan favorite of mine. This guy's tough as nails. Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's always there. And as a backup quarterback, he's my second quarterback off the bench. What I look for in these guys is either a home run guy or a guy I know is going to be there every week. So I'm going to go Brock Purdy. Who are you taking?
So I went tight end. Because, again, I wanted to make sure I grab at least one of the top 12 tight ends, in my opinion. And I went Isaac Rex here. Now, Isaac Rex, by far, is not my preferred tight end 1. That offense has lost too much from this past year. They lost Zach Wilson. They lost Dax Milne. They've lost Latoa, was that the name of the other running back behind Algier?
Yes. Yep.
So they lost him. They lost their offensive coordinator. So there's a lot rebuilding here on this offense. And you got poor little Isaac Rex, the freshman tight end from last year, who took over after Matt Bushman left, pretty much all on his own, left there with Tyler Algier. However, I do think that he will be a value for this upcoming season because everybody's kind of down on him because of how much that team has lost.
Yep.
However,
and I have him as my tight end 8. I don't think he did that bad.
I have him as my tight end 9. And so again, I think I did pretty well for, especially since again, tight ends are going off early here. And on top of this, tight ends are a young QB's best friend. They're great check down options. And I think whether it's Baylor Romney or Jaron Hall, one of those two will be the starting QB for BYU this upcoming year. I do think Isaac Rex is going to be a great safety blanket for them this upcoming year. And again, in PPR format, safety blankets are what you're going to want out of a tight end. You want somebody who they're going to target multiple times. So that's my piece on Isaac Rex being taken there.
It's interesting that Brian Robinson Jr. Is off the board finally, I will say, and the Alabama running back is picked. Do you expect a true committee for the first time? And I would have to look. It's been about 8 years since there was a true committee at Alabama. Do you expect one this year?
Read my lips. Hell no.
So who's going to run it? Who's going to run the ball every time? Because if it's Brian Robinson, we're all idiots. Because if the Alabama running back is going to run the ball, he needs to be a 3rd round pick or a 2nd round pick, not a 10th round pick. So what are we all missing?
The problem is that Brian Robinson is kind of a boomer bust prospect for this upcoming year. That's why people are taking him here in the 11th round rather than in the 3rd round. Because I do think that there's going to be a singular running back for Alabama this upcoming year. The problem is we don't know who that is. The two most obvious candidates are going to be Brian Robinson Jr., the guy who's, I believe he's going to be a senior this year. Yeah, he's a senior this upcoming year. Or you got some of the younger options, like you got Jace McClellan, you got Roydell Williams, you got
and I think McClellan is the most talented back. So why not take him?
I would agree with you. However, I do think that Brian Robinson has done more than enough for him to kind of take his lumps and become that running back 1 for at least the first half of this upcoming year. I think he's a great value for this upcoming year. And then as Chase McClellan kind of develops as the year goes on, I could totally see Brian Robinson fading, McClellan coming up, and then him becoming that number 1 back. I don't think that you'll see a committee approach at Alabama. I just don't think that's how Nick Saban runs. He always kind of finds that one hand that he's really comfortable with, and he'll run down the throat every single time.
Yeah, I don't see it with Robinson, in my opinion. But it's real early in our drafts. Do you know how many 20-yard runs he's had in his career?
I'm going to imagine that number is around 0.
2. In 3 years, the dude's busted a run against the scrubs twice, and that's going to be the Alabama running back? Ain't no way that dude's being a running back. Ain't no way. In a minute, I'm going to take McClellan and just write about how smart I am. So no way some buster who's broke 2 runs against the scrubs is going to leave Bama. Ain't going to happen. Joseph Nagata. I was on him last year. He totally burned me. Oh, no,
I was on the same boat as you last year.
Tarzan plays like Jane. I don't know, man. I mean, I guess when you're smarter, when you're better, I guess. We'll see. I got burned by that dude. Somebody else can pick him. I say, looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. Ooh, Jaden Daniels. Much better quarterback than fantasy quarterback. But again, much like my Brock Purdy, Jaden Daniels is going to be there every week for you, man. He's going to be there.
I agree with you 100%. And I actually you put who'd you put as your super sleeper again? I forget off the top of my head.
Let me look. Well, my super sleeper was Chris Smith.
See, I put Jaden Daniels.
Presley. Yeah, Jaden Daniels.
I put Jaden Daniels as my super sleeper. He was technically right outside. Like, again, I believe the qualifications were he had to go outside the 12th round. I believe he goes right at the top of the round 13 usually. In the drafts, he's just taken in actually this round 12 here. I think, again, you said much better QB than he is a fantasy QB. I think this is the year he breaks out as a fantasy option. He's got great rushing upside, and especially when you have a running back duo like Rashad White and Trip Trayona, defense's eyes are going to be on those two. And Jaden Daniels is going to have lots of lanes opened up for him for this upcoming year. Now, the real question is, can they improve that passing game? And I do think they can. They got a couple of good wide receivers. I believe they're developing over there in Elvie Bunkley-Shelton and Elijah Badger. I think he's going to have great options to throw to this upcoming year, on top of the fact that both Trayanum and White are both receiving backs. And I think he's going to have the breakout year that we've been kind of waiting on him to have.
Cool. Now, it definitely could happen, and he does have talent. You always want your fantasy guys to have talent. It's certainly at this point of the draft, very good. And could I see all of that you said you're predicting happen? Yeah, I definitely could. Jaden Daniels at this point of the draft, very good selection. Who are you about to roll with, man? What position you going to go with?
So the running backs I'm looking at here, I could probably wait. I can definitely feel like I could wait on a round or two. So I think I'm probably looking at quarterback or wide receiver here, or I could go defense. Hold on, let me look at what defenses are still available here. I'm gonna go defense. I got a couple of good defenses still available here. Some people. Well, there goes one of them.
Yes,
I'm gonna go.
I was gonna say, I think I know who you're gonna pick, but you're not gonna pick them. So okay.
There they go. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the next defense that I have available to me, and that's going to be Notre Dame's defense. They have a little bit harder schedule this upcoming year, but that's how Brian Kelly builds his teams, is almost defense first. You're almost always going to see that defense is going to be better than the offense, and I believe that if I'm able to find a good streaming option on the weeks that Notre Dame's playing a harder team like Wisconsin or I believe they play Cincinnati this year, don't they?
I think so.
So like maybe on those weeks, I'm willing to take out Notre Dame, replace somebody else, but even still, those aren't really like high scoring teams. So like I think Notre Dame's could be a great option for anybody who takes them here. So we'll go ahead and move on to your picks.
Yeah, again, there's so much value in these part of the draft. I can't believe some of these guys are still available. I'm going to go back to my small school quarterback and go Western Michigan. Dude scores a bunch of points. Again, I'm always afraid he's a wee little dude, if I remember correctly. So I'm always a little nervous that those little guys get hurt. But yeah, that guy at this point of the draft, that's just silly, man. I still don't think I should take wide receiver, but all of the guys I have about 15 guys that I'm stunned are still here in the draft. And because I want to write about some of these guys, this is the third running back on my list of guys that are available, but I'm going to take him right now because I want to write about him. And that's Marcus Williams Jr. of La Tech. Dude, La Tech has been a running back factory. And Williams was awesome at App State in a committee. He got banged up, lost his job, came back, did well when he was playing. He's going to go to La Tech and blow it up. And you're Jermaine Burton, so you had to get you a dog. I did it.
I had to get me
somebody.
I had to get me a dog. I had to get a dog, and Jermaine Burton's going too late here. I know a lot of people are never sold, and rightfully so, historically, on the Georgia offense. However, when you look at last year, when JT Daniels took over that offense, everybody looked to George. Like you looked to George Pickens. George Pickens averaged almost 16 points a game as a wide receiver, which was good enough in that stretch to be the wide receiver 22 overall in the league. If you're telling me that the number one receiving option on Georgia's offense with JT Daniels at the QB position is going to be a guy that is going to be the 22nd overall wide receiver in terms of fantasy points per game, and I'm getting him here in the 13th round, hell yeah, I'm going to go for that. That's a hell of an upside pick right there. And I do believe Jermaine Burton will be the number one wide receiver on Georgia's team this upcoming year.
What do you think of them at running back? I'm not a Zamir White guy. I traded him last year, and I was happy to do so. I think, honestly, I believe every running back that they had last year, I'm not looking at their list, but Milton and McIntosh, aren't there? Both of those men are better football players than Zamir White. I think either one of those guys could do just as well or better than him. Why do they love Zamir White so much? Tell me, what am I missing? I don't see it.
I think it's experience.
And I think look at running backs. I do well looking at those. I don't see it in White. Tell me what I'm missing.
So I don't think you're missing anything. I think it's actually very prevalent among the Georgia fan base that Xavier White is a very talented running back, but clearly not our most talented running back. I do believe that most people are, at this point, more in love with Kendall Milton, I believe, out of our running back room than anybody else. He's the guy that everybody's kind of looking at and says, that's the next Nick Chubb, that's the next Sony Michel, that's the next DeAndre Swift. Not play style wise or anything like that, but he's in that next line of great Georgia running backs. And
Zachary Franklin, that was my coin flip. So
that was
come back to me. Yeah, I like that selection.
I like Zachary Franklin there as well. A very high floor guy. Anyway, continue on with the Georgia running back room. Again, I love Zamir. He's been through hell and back. He's had 2 torn ACLs, and I think that's the reason why he's just not the same player as he was in the past. But I do think he is still good enough to be a part of the Georgia rotation. But unfortunately, that's the thing when it comes to fantasy, is that Georgia running back room is going to be a huge rotation this next year. I do believe Xavier will be the number 1 guy. But when you look at the amount of carries he's going to get compared to the amount of carries that you'll see in other running back rooms, he is going to be the guy, or he's going to be a guy that you're going to more often than not just avoid for the most part in these drafts. Now, I do think after a certain point, you can get him for a good value. But
all right, in terms of one of my pet wide receivers that I've been saying I could just pick whenever I feel like it because I'm so arrogant, Jashawn Polk. I call him the hokey pokey. I dig him. He was real fun to watch when I had McCoy and Crum, and it always made me, when I was looking at the TV, I always said, who is that? And I'd be like, damn, that's Polk again. I like Polk. Again, I will not make this mistake in my other drafts. Polk will be on my team. He is a forgotten about wide receiver. That dude's good. So
I like him. I'll ask your opinion. What are your opinions on Nakeem Johnson transferring in from Syracuse? What do you think about that there?
Oh, dude, that could totally work. I like big school guys who go small time. They hit about 35-40% of the time. So, he could easily be good, very good in that system. They're going to move the ball. So that's Elijah Cannon there for Auburn. He was the highest ranked guy on my list. I don't really like him as much as the rankings do, so I let him sit. With you. But at this stage, it's cool. And I'm going to have to take one of my pet wide receivers or they're all going to be gone. So I'm looking forward to my next selection. This is going to be fun.
I think I'm looking at who I could take here. I'm probably going to go wide receiver, running back here again. I might looking at quarterback. Yeah, I'm probably going to go running back, wide receiver here. And I think what I will be doing is dipping back into that Mac well of points here. I'm going to take a guy who broke out his freshman year on a very, very bad Bowling Green State team and I believe that, he is a game script wise, you would expect a bad team. You're not going to find a ton of value on their running back because they're going to move away from that and therefore go to the passing game. But I'm going to take Terrion Stewart, running back out of running back out of Bowling Green State here. Mainly because, again, when they were behind, they still went to him as a freshman. Like, they clearly have a ton of faith in this guy, and he averaged almost 18 points a game last year. Again,
I dig it.
On a bad team. And on a round 14, I think he's perfect value. All right, who are you picking here?
This one, man. I watched Memphis. I had just about every Memphis player on a selection of teams. One of them left and went to USC. And again, every time I watched the TV, this guy jumped off the screen, and that's Taj Washington.
I love Taj Washington.
Is a baller. And I know the Brew McCoy pick here would be a little more, how people play.
I don't like Brew McCoy.
Taj Washington walks Brew McCoy's dog. He's way better than Brew McCoy. So I'm going to take my first pet wide receiver. I'll leave another one to sit. Let me go to quarterback. Let's see. I have 3 bench quarterbacks, and I'll need there are so many good quarterbacks. I guess we'll just let you select some of those. I'll go to running back. I guess I need a bench one better. And I'm going to go with Mr. Reliable, Charles Williams out of UNLV. Dude,
very good.
If you need 15 points, he's your guy. If you need 20 points, he just ain't your guy. Charles Williams does not ever get me 20, but he seems to always get me 15 when I need it. He's a 90 yards and a touchdown kind of guy on a bad team. You know, what's interesting about him is, again, I wish they used him more in the passing game, and they should. He has hands when he plays. Who you rolling with here?
So I was down between two guys, and I went with the guy who I imagined was not going to fall back to me on this next round, because we're in that area of the draft where you are having guys, like, people are kind of starting to pick my guys. You were talking about your pet wide receiver and everything.
Yes.
So it's more likely that if you're looking at a guy, he's going to fall back to you here. So I went with the guy who I thought was going to be less likely to fall back to me, and that was Jordan Whittington, wide receiver out of Texas. And from all available reports is that Sarkisian loves Whittington. Him and his staff love Whittington, and I believe that they're going to try to get him the ball as much as they can out of that Texas wide receiver room. I was a big Joshua Moore fan last year. Very inconsistent for me last year. He's on my team. And he was going to be the Texas wide receiver I was going to hype up this upcoming year. But when you're in this business, you have to go with the information that you're being given. And for me, that is Whittington is going to be that number one guy for this upcoming year based on all available reports from Sarkisian and the Texas staff, that he is kind of broken out this spring and will likely be a huge contributor for them this upcoming year. And again, number one wide receiver for Texas in the 15th round. Hell yeah, I'll take that upside.
Yeah, just great selections. Two more that I'll comment about, and then I'll go back to Whittington. Jaden DeLora and Clayton Tune, again, this late in drafts. Those are steals.
Quarterback is deep this year.
Yeah, it shows you that what you shouldn't do is load up on quarterbacks. Get your wide receivers, get your running backs, wait on QB. It is a deep league.
People are going to get. Yeah. I feel like when this is published, people are going to give me crap for taking Jake Heiner when I did in the 9th round, and understandably so. However, again, to me, that was just too valuable of a pick. Jake Heiner in the 9th round. I think ADP wise, he goes at the beginning of the 9th round, but even still, I got him at the end of the 9th round, so I thought that was good value for me there as my backup QB. Anyway, you have thoughts on Whittington?
Yeah. So. Whittington is talented. I feel he's not a hard worker. That's some of the stuff that I went to UT. That was one of the colleges that I went to. I have a lot of friends in Austin. If he gets his head right, and it could all be a coaching change, dude's going to be a stud. At this juncture, all you really want are to put people on your team who could be awesome, like Trey Henderson of Ohio State. He could be awesome. He could just be Master Teague's bag boy. So you want to try to hit a home run on some of these selections. I've gone a little steady Eddie with Brock Purdy and Charles Williams. Again, it's just you can go with, what's comfortable to you, or go with the home run strategy. It just seemed like a lot of value. But Whittington this late, oh man, what do you want this late in the draft?
Exactly.
A high-powered offense that's turning over with a high-powered offensive coach. Put a little money into it and see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, I really, really like it. Very good.
Yeah, coming back to me here, I'm going to take my pet wide receiver. I'll just go ahead and tell you if he's still available to me, or Nick could take him from me again. But I'm going to go with the guy who I think, again, you're talking about high-powered offenses, and I do believe that Miami will have a massively high-powered offense for this upcoming year. I'm going to go with the guy who all available reports out of spring games and everything has told me that this guy will be a very solid contributor for Miami this upcoming year, and I believe he is talented enough. Oh, there goes Brew McCoy, as you were just saying.
Yep.
I believe that Charleston Rambo is going to be the number one wide receiver for Miami this upcoming year. And again, for me to get that here in the 16th round, again, I know Derek King's not exactly the best passer in the world and everything like that. But again, reports out of spring camp and everything has said that Rambo has gone for over 100 yards in every game that he's played, or in every scrimmage that he's played, gotten about 7 to 9 receptions in each of those games. And during the spring game, he went for over 100 yards again. I got to take him here. So I'm going to go Charleston Rambo, wide receiver out of Miami.
And again, very Very good. At this juncture again of the draft, it's a lot of these guys I don't believe will be here in every draft. TJ Pledger is a guy that is one of my deep super sleepers. But a guy that I like even better talent wise is Jashawn Corbin. I'll take him on my list here. Again, it hasn't worked. It hasn't clicked in Florida State yet, but I like him. At this juncture of the draft, it's really good. Wide receivers that if I were to take one, and I'm going to take a defense to finish this out, but I like some guys from Syracuse here, good. Dipping into BYU right now would be smart. All of those guys, I mean, when I look at this draft, it's been so deep. So at defense, I'm gonna make a surprising selection here, and I'm gonna go Liberty.
I'm 100% on board. 100% on board.
Yeah.
Just letting you know right now.
Yeah, I like Liberty's defense. They are very opportunistic, and when you don't invest in a defense, really all you're doing is planning on streaming. I don't know who Liberty opens up their schedule with. Oh, it's at Western Kentucky. No, that was last year. So this obviously I would just be in this draft if we were playing it out. I would just pick the defense that plays some bad Division II squad. So who are you gonna finish your draft with?
I'm going to go with another dog here. Again, I really think I think people are sleeping on Darnell Washington, tight end out of Georgia. Grabbing him here as my backup tight end. And again, turns out it's not as good. Round 17, cut him easily. Hate to do that to a dog, but a lot of people are probably going to look at that and be like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Jared? Eric Gilbert just transferred there. Like, isn't he going to get all the targets this upcoming year? I don't think so. Not only that, because Eric Gilbert was recruited as a wide receiver to Georgia, not a tight end. So therefore, his classification is probably going to change for this upcoming year. And
so give me a couple of guys who you're stunned made it through this whole draft. I'm going to start off.
Go ahead.
Gunnell, the Arizona transfer to Memphis, he should be selected. That's one. And there was no LSU quarterback selected. With that offense, someone needed to say, I'm going to take a chance at Max Johnson or what have you.
Especially in these later rounds, yes.
Yeah, I'm stunned they're there. Is there anybody that you're just really surprised made it through this entire draft?
I would agree with you on the LSU quarterbacks and Grant Gunnell. I'm also going to throw Michael Penix Jr. in there with his rushing ability. I know a lot of people are worried about his injuries and everything, but I think he's absolutely somebody.
Somebody took Brennan. So at least somebody did the LSU. Okay, good.
That was good.
Again, it could be Max Johnson or Brennan. But at this juncture, you got to take one of them. But anyway, keep going.
I'm looking at running backs. None of the wide running backs really strike me as like, wow, I can't believe that guy didn't go. And again, looking at wide receivers, none of these guys kind of strike me as somebody who I'm surprised didn't go. Probably the closest thing. Keelan Stokes, actually, I'm looking at that name now. Wide receiver at Tulsa. I'm surprised he kind of made it through this far. Anybody else that's kind of poking out to me? Tight end wise,
Micah Bernard at Utah or TJ Pledger. They needed to be drafted. That's a running back there that those guys need to be drafted. Utah runs the ball. All right. So what'd you say at wide receiver? Who are you surprised with?
Wide receiver, I say Keelan Stokes. But again, other than that, I'm looking at these guys. None of these other guys kind of jump out to me as guys that I've was surprised weren't taken. You got any wide receivers that you were surprised at?
I had Rashee Rice. He was the last guy that I ranked. I ranked him the 46, I think 45 wide receivers. He was number 45 on my list. I'm surprised he made it. I mean, it's not a great surprise because we only start 3 wide receivers, but I like SMU's offense, even though they're switching, they're Shane Buechele is 107 years old and finally moved on. What about Mackenzie Milton?
I am really, again, I think the fact that he hasn't quite separated himself from Jordan Travis is something that is kind of given a lot of people pause for this upcoming year. I think if he had established himself as a clear number one by now, that people would be a lot more invested into him. He's definitely in my rankings and somebody I'm absolutely willing to take in these later round drafts and everything. Again, this was only a 17-round draft. Now, that's kind of typical and everything, but I like to play deeper leagues. So he's absolutely somebody I would have been looking at here in the next couple of rounds. Tight end wise, actually, there's a few names here I'm kind of surprised we're not taking. Peyton Hendershot, tight end out of Indiana, I thought was kind of surprising. Jake Ferguson.
Hendershot is good enough to have been drafted today.
Jake Ferguson, tight end out of Wisconsin. He kind of became that clear safety blanket for Graham Mertz last year. So I think that was kind of another surprising one. And there's sometimes when you're kind of stuck with tight ends, you just kind of want to go with the ones that are a part of good offensive systems. So Jeremy Ruckert out of Ohio State, Braden Galloway out of Clemson. I'm kind of surprised they're still here. But other than that, everybody else kind of struck me as guys that don't typically go undrafted, but I'm not surprised they went undrafted here.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Well, that was fun. So, okay, let's dissect my team first. You can chop it up. All right. So at quarterback, I'm rolling Malik Willis, Carson Strong. I'm super happy with that. I'll give myself an A. But the deal on the draft, though, that I got to be honest with, that's not a lot of value. So those quarterbacks, they better be good because I picked them in the first and fourth round. Normally, I would have been the Jaden Delora and LSU's quarterback, and my wide receivers would have been better. But picking out of that one hole, if you don't take Bell, I don't think there is a call to make a selection of any other wide receiver number one overall. So I give myself an A for productivity, but a C- for value. What do you think of my quarterbacks? Oh, and then on the bench, I'm rolling Ellaby, who is outstanding for a bench, and then Jones and Purdy, who are just dudes, in my opinion. How do you think I did at quarterback?
So at quarterback, again, I think you found a nice balance between Malik Willis is going to provide enough rushing ability for both for him and Carson Strong. So I think you're good there. Emory Jones, again, I'm not high on him, but again, I think you made a great argument earlier. The fact that like if he was good, he would have been drafted much earlier than 9. So I think, again, I agree with you. Him and Purdy are just dudes, safe floors. If your guys go down for injury and everything, those are great guys you can slot in there. Again, I think your steal at QB was Caleb Ellaby. I was honestly surprised when he took Brock Purdy before him because I would have easily had Caleb Ellaby ahead of him there. I think he did a great job at quarterback. Let's see, running back. You want to give your thoughts there?
Yeah, so Lenny Brown, Ronnie Rivers. Both of these guys, again, 116 years old, each of them. They've been around since I was in high school. They get the ball all the time on teams that aren't good. Ronnie Rivers catches some balls, so in our half-point PPR, that makes me happy. And I always like to stay up late and watch those Fresno games. So it'll be fun. Their offense is very good. But to tell you the truth, Rivers isn't needed as much as he used to be because the quarterback and wide receiver combinations are better. So while I like Rivers in the third round, that's just a C- pick. Lenny Brown, that late in the second, that was a good pick. On the bench, I gush over Marcus Williams. That'll be one of the guys in our little questions, I imagine, will be my, what's the one, super sleeper or whatever. I got him in the 13th round.
Yes.
He could be dynamic at La Tech. So that pick man, I love that one. The rest of the dudes are those lunch pail guys. Frank Gore gets you 80 yards and a touchdown. So with Chucky Williams. Corbin was much better at A&M than he has been at Florida State. But again, 16th round, dude has talent. And that offense can generate running back studs. So productivity-wise, I'm going to give myself a B. Draft capital-wise, I'm fine with it. I give myself an A-. What do you think of these backs?
If I'm being straight honest with you, if it weren't for the fact that you don't have a single backup wide receiver on your bench, I would say your running backs are probably your weakest point on this team, and that's mostly because you got a lot of high floor guys, but not a ton of high ceiling guys. Charles Williams, I agree with you that, again, you need 15 points. He'll get them for you. Ain't no worry about that, but I don't think I'll ever see him get more than 25 points in a game. Ronnie Rivers, I like Ronnie Rivers a lot, actually. I think he'll be good for this upcoming year. In his final year, it looks like. I think they're going to do a lot to make sure that he gets the ball a lot. So I view him a little bit more highly than you do. I'd actually, if you had flipped, again, you're drafting at the turn, so it's not like, I was going to say, if you flip the value of Ronnie in the second and Letty in the third, but it's the same selection effectively. But I do think that was a good running back duo for you to grab there, especially since you couldn't grab one in the first round and you had to wait all the way to the end of the second round to grab your first running back. I think that was a good running back duo there. But again, I'm just not over the moon excited about any of your kind of bench guys you got here. Frank Gore, I know you love him. I'm not quite as high on him there. But you got him at a good value, 10th round. So if you want me to say productivity-wise, I'd give you said you gave yourself a B minus?
Yes.
I'd probably give you the exact same. Value-wise, I'd say probably B plus.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's so if you look at our teams and the strategy, and when we go to yours, it'll really come home. So are Malik Willis and Letty Brown, are those guys going to am I gonna score more? You went Hall with the first pick and Hutchison with the 4th pick. So you're 1-4 quarterback, running back combo. And to liken that, that's kind of my Malik Willis and Ronnie Rivers at 1-3.
Mm-hmm.
See, I have to beat you there or you win the draft in those rounds. You see what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
You got that guy in the 4th. So like I have to win that matchup. And if you ask me, am I confident that Breece Hall and DTR are not as good as Malik Willis and Ronnie Rivers? I guess I'm a little better, but I paid more. So I don't know. I think you're right. So all of that is what I'm saying is I don't think Malik Willis is the pick here.
No.
I just don't. Okay, so let's go wide receivers. All right. So Braylon Sanders and Travell Harris, I'm totally fine with them. Mm-hmm. For the value in the 5th and 6th round, the value of those two dudes, to me, that's an A. I waited on wide receiver, got those two guys, high-powered offenses, dudes get a bunch of catches, and they've already been good, and now their situation's even better. Shit. I'll take that all day long. That's how to play. Again, just going back to I should have taken Breece Hall. I think the projections will stay out. I do believe you can wait on wide receiver if you get lucky and get some guys like Harris and like Sanders. I'm totally fine with that. Then there is a gap.
Huge. That
we could go back and look at these wide receivers. And Khalil Pimpleton in a mock draft went in the 8th round.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, he is no better than Taj Washington. He just isn't. Jair Shorter has had 2 good games. And while that's a really good offense, he's going 6 rounds earlier than people like Taj Washington. No, thank you. If you pay for your wide receivers and then wait. So what I keep thinking in this draft, you go running back, you get your backs, then you get the solid Grayson McCall quarterback, and then you come back with Braylon Sanders and Taj Washington, and you get your sleepers later. But anyway, I didn't pick a bench wide receiver, but honestly, there are a ton of dudes on offenses that we didn't even pick. Like nobody got picked from Texas Tech. The number 2 wide receiver for Memphis wasn't selected. The number 2 wide receiver for Clemson wasn't selected. So, I mean, even right now, I could just pick up guys and feel super comfortable. Because like Nagata was picked. Nagata ain't this 2 wide receiver. Again, looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. I haven't even done my homework enough to know but just like there's a ton of guys out there that are available. My tight end Dykes, I dig him. Again, I'm not a tight end guy. I'll wait mid-round. I probably picked him a round too early, but I did begin that run of tight ends.
I would say
like
you kind of set that whole thing in motion, because I could tell you that Sean Dykes on average in ADP does not go until the 11th round in these CFF redraft leagues. So you drafted him about 3 rounds earlier than I think people were expecting to. And I think that's why you set off that chain, because everybody was like, oh God.
Yep, better pick that tight end, they said. And my backup running back of Kobach, I really like Bryant Kobach. He doesn't have Seymour in the backfield anymore. They've been a two-headed monster. It's not to say that the next Toledo guy, someone who wasn't drafted, is not a solid ass sleeper. The second running back for Toledo always goes way late and always gets 700 yards and 10 touchdowns. So, like, is Bryant Kobach going to rush for 1,400 yards finally? No, probably not.
No.
But he could. He could.
Good.
He is a guy who gets 100-yard games. He is a guy who scores touchdowns. So in 6 games last year, he scored 4 times and had 300-yard games. As a flex running back, I'll take it. So when I look at my team as a whole, I'll give myself a B. When I look at all these teams, I didn't outdraft everybody. It's difficult to hustle people with this much talent in a draft, and it's nearly impossible to do it from where you and I drafted.
Yeah, I would say
ain't nobody gonna come back.
That I was gonna mention that, and like I guess we'll kind of transition over to here to my team, and like kind of looking at my team, I'm gonna be really honest with you. This was probably, out of all the mock drafts I've done so far, it's probably my least favorite. And like one of the questions we'll have is like, did my strategy work for me? And it did kind of at first. It's just some of the guys I was hoping would fall back to me, like you were kind of saying, just weren't there. And like when you're looking for guys to fall back to you on that turn and everything, it's like, or like when our turn and everything, I only got 2 picks and everything, so I'm basically guaranteed. It's almost like I'm picking twice, because the likelihood of you taking the guy I'm wanting in that turn is almost nothing. So,
and especially when I was on a position you weren't on, because I began at quarterback and you began at running back, we're not going to overlap a lot. If I went running back and you went running back, then you would be picking quarterback and I'd be picking quarterback. So it didn't work out there. We didn't snipe each other much at all.
Again, a lot of the things I'm not liking about my draft is the fact that I feel like I just made a lot of panic picks in terms of getting sniped on a couple of them, and like I've gotten too complacent with some of these slow drafts that I've been a part of, and giving myself a bit more time to think. I need to get back into practice, and that's what I'm hoping to do with my mock draft Mondays, which I'll give a plug for that at the end here. But I'm hoping to get back into that practice and everything, because nothing like looking up, seeing you have a full minute left to think about it, then looking back up, and all of a sudden you're hearing the baseball music saying, sir, you have 15 seconds left. And I'm like, I didn't feel like 45 seconds. So a couple of guys here, I think that kind of for me were kind of panic picks. Master Teague definitely was, I'd say, probably my biggest panic pick with Tuggle going off the board there. I just went for the next running back up. Probably if I thought about it for a little bit longer, I probably could have found a better running back there to take with value. But again, I'm happy with Master Teague in the 8th round rather than taking him way earlier than that, like he was going earlier this summer.
Yes.
Round 17, again, I love Darnell. If I thought about it a little bit longer, I probably should have gone for somebody with a little bit more upside than just another tight end, especially when I have somebody who I like as much as Isaac Rex. Again, Jake Haener, I like the value I got him at, and I think he is a value in round 9. But again, considering I hadn't taken any running backs or wide receivers at that point, if I'm looking at this correctly, I hadn't built my bench up with any of those. I probably could have waited on QB just a little bit longer. Like you said, you got LOB in like the 12th round. And to me, there's not a huge difference between Jake Haener and Caleb LOB. So, and then I'm trying to think here.
I'm looking for our fantasy questions too. What were our questions again? I'm sure I have them in an email.
I have them pulled up right here. So the first question we'll have is, what is your 2021 CFF draft strategy? Did it work in this draft? My CFF strategy for this year is aim for a possible wide receiver in that first round, build that up as quickly as you can, and then build from the depth that is at running back and QB from there on out. That cannot happen.
I think your strategy is dead on, but it's difficult to do it from the 1 or 2.
It's impossible to do it from the 1 or 2 position because, again, Breece Hall and Malik Willis are going to be those 1 and 2 guys. Yeah, and thus you have to wait so long to grab that first wide receiver. And by the time you get to that first wide receiver, my first wide receiver is Jalen Tolbert. I love Jalen Tolbert. He's my 6th overall wide receiver. But to me, there's a huge gap between those first 6 of Butte, Bell, Austin, Treylon Burks, and Khalil Shakir. There's a huge gap between those 5 and everybody else underneath it. I would love to grab one of those guys if they fell to me, but they just weren't there. So
all right.
I will say my draft strategy did not work, and I don't think it was ever meant to work with the number 2 position. So what's your answer to that?
Okay, so the first, I think you're spot on. So my draft strategy in college fantasy football never wavers. It is pick the talented guy at any position and back them up with guys who are always going to be there when you need them. I don't get what's his name from Michigan, Donovan Edwards?
Donovan Edwards.
I almost never draft that guy. Much to my chagrin. Oftentimes, I drafted Jonathan Taylor, and after his first game, I traded him. It was a terrible trade. It was in a keeper league. The guy had Jonathan Taylor his whole career. I don't bank on those guys. I picked the guys who are talented on talented offenses, like Jonathan Taylor, but I just didn't keep him. So I'm going to pick the uber talented guys when I can. And then the second part of that strategy is I want to pick dudes who get the ball. And I did do that. Carson Strong, Malik Willis, Letty Brown, Ronnie Rivers, Braylon Sanders, Bryant Koback, Ellaby, Frank Gore, Charles Williams, and Marcus Williams are likely going to lead their team in touches. So,
that's fair.
Hey, I love picking super fly guys, but you know what? I'll take the dude who just gets the ball all the time.
And I think that's incredibly. I was gonna say, I think that's incredibly important for like half PPR and PPR leagues. Like a strategy where I kind of go a bit more, where like I'm looking for that guy that could be explosive as every time he touches the ball. You'll see that with kind of some of the guys that I kind of picked. That's a bit better for a non PPR league because at that point you're not looking for guys that are just going to give you that safe floor of you got 7 catches, so therefore your floor is 7 points. If you get 7 catches for nothing.
And to be honest with you, Jared, I could tell by your draft strategy or the guys that you drafted, you and I weren't sinking in what we thought was valuable. Burton on your team, let me look at my wide receivers. He'll probably be drafted in the NFL before all of my guys. Travell Harris, Braylon Sanders, they're not going to be drafted before Burton in the NFL. Burton is a lot better football player than all those guys. I just think I got the better fantasy guys. I did draft those dudes before you, but what I'm saying is you didn't go lunch pail. You went talent. So Jordan Whittington, I mean, he's a track star. That guy's uber talented. He's just a flake. It could pan out and he could be a baller, or he might not do shit. So,
but again, I got him in the 15th round. So it's
super late. Exactly.
I would say it's like when you're drafting outside of everybody out there, you have to draft people that you are willing to cut almost instantly, because the most important weeks in fantasy, what I found, are those first 2 to 3 weeks in almost any league that you play in, any sport that you play in. Learning how like you could talk about all the spring reports that you want, you could talk about all the fall camp reports that you want, but once you see it actually out there on the field, how touches are being broken up, how who's becoming the favorite target for these QBs and everything, you have to make those decisions very early on. Otherwise, you are going to get beat at the waiver wire so often, and that can easily kill your season for the rest of the time. You can have the best draft in the world, but if you aren't willing to adapt throughout the season and everything, and you aren't able to pick up with these guys early, you're going to get left behind very quickly.
Yep. Okay, let me give you my favorite pick of your team, and then you can read me question 2. My favorite pick on your team was your 7th round selection. You picked him 71st overall, Justin Hall. I picked Bryant Koback as one of my turn picks after you picked Hall. I would have gone Hall before Koback. That would have also balanced out my team a little better. That was one of the picks that you made that pick really, really mattered. I wanted to go Hall and Harris back to back, and that would have given me my wide receiver, my 2 and 3, because I would have went Sanders, Harris, Hall, and my team would have been better. I would say
if your starting wide receiving core was Braylon Sanders, Travell Harris, and Justin Hall, you might have won the draft, regardless of how low or low ceiling I might think some of your running back picks and everything could be. Like, that wide receiver core could probably carry you through the entire season.
Yeah, Justin Hall gets balls. He goes to my strategy of guys who get the rock. So that to me was my favorite pick that you made. I thought that was very clever. Okay, go ahead.
I'll name my favorite pick from your team, and this is actually your last pick. Round 17, you grabbed Liberty's defense and everything, and I think you kind of showed the value in waiting on DST sometimes. Because, again, I went and drafted Notre Dame. They're the 4th best defense, in my opinion, for this. Actually, no, I might have them higher than that, but they're one of the top 4 defenses this upcoming year for me in fantasy. I think they're going to be fantastic. However, if you know where to look and you know how to play the schedules and everything, you can find those defenses that kind of slip through the cracks. And I think you found a perfect one in Liberty in round 17.
Yeah, Liberty is better than almost every team they play, and that's what you want out of your defense. It doesn't matter if you have Kentucky's defense, if they're playing against McNeese. Now you have the best fantasy defense of the week.
Exactly.
Having a team being favored every week means your offense should be on the field, putting pressure on their offense to do stuff, which gets turnovers. That's why the Liberty pick, it's sexy, dude. For me, I dig.
Combine that with the fact that you have Malik Willis. Like, you're talking about like pairing Malik Willis with like your like Ronnie Rivers and stuff like that. Pairing Malik Willis with Liberty's defense. Like, you saw that combo last year and everything. Like,
yep.
Malik, you're talking about like getting offense on the field. Take offense out of that sentence. Putting Malik Willis out there on the field more often is going to lead to more fantasy points for you, and with him scoring more often, it's going to make them more desperate, and therefore get your defense more points because they're going to be getting turnovers.
So, do you know how many running backs are available on Fantrax for Liberty? 1.
I would say Joshua Mack.
And he wasn't selected. That's another guy that I didn't talk about him during the thing or whatever. But so Josh Mack, I don't know how much you know about him. He's a prankster and gets into trouble a lot.
Okay.
Some of the stuff that he's done has made Twitter. So he's like a shenanigan guy and often doesn't get the start. Peyton Pickett was on the field a lot of those first drives, and almost every first drive Liberty had ended in a touchdown last year. So you take off 10 drives that Josh Mack should have had, which normally equates to about 20 yards a drive, and he would have scored about a third of those touchdowns. So when you give the guy 200 more yards and 4 more touchdowns, like, he's a flex guy, and no one picked him. Like, that's just another just insane travesty. They run the ball. Like, Malik Willis dominates the offense, but damn, I'm talking about like you can pick, what hell, Josh Mack's available now. He's available as a pickup. He's just as good.
Let me see if I can find him on the ADP sheet real quick. Because again, well, here's your problem. Again, last year he averaged 10.75 points a game last year. Like, that's not going to be something. That's not going to be something people are interested for this upcoming year.
He lost out on about 3.5 points a game because he didn't do that first drive. He's a 13.5 point guy, and with being a 13.5 point guy, that guy gets rostered every time. That's what I'm saying. Like, I would bet $10 that Josh Mack beats 2 of Frank Gore, Marcus Williams, Charles Williams, and Jashawn Corbin. I bet he beats 2 of those dudes.
You want me to tell you something crazy? I'm just looking at my ADP sheet here. By the way, once again, if you want it for 30, from folks listening, if you want it, $30, $15 if you subscribe on YouTube and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. He's not on here. He has not been drafted in a single mock draft this year. I think people have.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
No.
When you add what Peyton Pickett and Josh Mack did, they would be a running back 3. Now, again, is Josh Mack going to be the only running back on the field? No. I mean, there's going to be some human that plays. I get it. But look, Fantrax has 0 humans to pick from right now. So you get the entire running back with just one dude? Come on, brother. That guy should have been drafted. Hell, I should have drafted him.
No, fair enough. I think that's entirely fair. And I think, again, we were talking about players that we saw that were still available and everything. And I think that's something else people need to understand with these drafts and everything. There are so many good players left on the waiver wire when it comes to college fantasy. This isn't NFL where by the time you're in your 16th round, you're talking about you're scraping the very bottom of the barrel for any kind of value you can find. There are full-on starting quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs still available in the waiver wire. So again, I call back to what I was saying earlier. Drafting is important in CFF, but once we get into the actual season, learning how to play that waiver wire and everything, it's going to become even more important. And you need to understand that even if you don't maybe trust a guy like Joshua Mack during draft season, you need to keep his name in the back of your mind. You need to keep him on, you need to be looking for his name every single week, being like, alrighty, I didn't draft him because of this reason, but if I'm wrong and he doesn't have that anymore, I need to go get him now.
Yep. I look at teams like Tennessee, where Ty Chandler was the only guy drafted. Finding those teams, and last year, Kentucky was one where the running backs got drafted, nobody else did. Digging in and finding that guy who's going to get 7 touches, man, it matters. It totally matters. All right, what's our second question that we have to answer for the Gridiron Scholar?
Yeah, we'll try to get through these a little bit quicker. We kind of touched on it earlier. The number 2 is identify your top sleeper candidate this season. All
right. So there's a ton of these. And we just gave that. So top sleeper, and then what's the last question?
Last question is select one player who will become a weekly CFF starter drafted in the 10th round or later this season who is not on your roster. That's why.
Okay, cool. So here. Let's have a little fun with this one. Unless you got to go, and you can go.
No. I'm mostly worried about time. We're at an hour 45 minutes so far, so I'm mostly thinking about the listeners here. But even so, I think we can find some guys pretty quickly. So you go ahead first.
Okay, so let's go. I'm going to go to a random team. I'm going to take Eric Froton's team.
All right.
10th round or later. Well, heck, I'm a cheat. 10th round pick Lou Nichols. Man, Lou Nichols is good.
That's a good 10th round pick.
Yeah, Lou Nichols put a very solid Kobe Lewis on the bench. And when you're young and you put a seasoned man on the bench, oh, that's good. 335 yards and 3 touchdowns the last 3 games. So we're talking 100 yards and a touchdown a game in the 10th round. He probably has value of a 5th round running back. So right off the page, Eric Froton, hats off on Lou Nichols in the 10th. Who you got?
So I'm kind of looking through some other ones in here, and so I'm gonna go. This is more recent news and everything, but the name that kind of stuck out to me was David Bailey, just transferred from Boston College to Colorado State, reuniting himself with Steve Addazio. And while Steve Addazio, for any kind of passing game, fantasy wise, is absolute cancer, his running game, and him picking one running back to kind of stick with and giving him all the carries, David Bailey, I think, is going to be one of those solid floor running backs where you're going to get 15, 18 points out of him every single week, and you're going to be wanting him to just have him on your roster as a safe floor. Again, he produced AJ Dillon.
When was he selected?
He was selected in round 11, I believe. Yeah, round 11.
Cool. Yeah, very good. I would say a sexier Charles Williams. on my team. I got Williams later. David Bailey, a little more established with that coach. I totally agree with that. I will say that their roster is weird. They have some because I live in Colorado, so they tend to do gadget stuff, but that isn't Steve Adazio. So I think David Bailey might come in there and get those carries. I like that.
He'll get those carries. He'll kind of bring some normalcy to that offense that I think Steve Adazio is looking for. Because who was a running back for Colorado State last year? If I remember, I can't remember.
McElroy was his name. Yep. He did well, banged up a lot, and they were still tinkering with Dante Wright, who's their gadget guy, handing him the ball a little too much. Dante Wright is somebody, too, very talented, but in that offense, I don't see it clicking. I could be wrong, but I don't see it clicking.
No, I think it's fantastic.
A guy who's one of our favorites, he invited us to this, the Gridiron Scholar, John Laub. I'll go to his squad and pick a couple of his guys.
Before we go further, I was going to say thank you, John, if you're listening, for inviting us to be a part of this. This was a ton of fun. It was great to be in a real draft environment again, where you're limited on your time to make your pick. It was great discussing with Mitch all of this, and it wouldn't have been possible without you putting all this together. So with that being said, Mitch, you can continue. Sorry about that.
So I kept sharing with you that I have pet wide receivers, and during the draft, I made a couple of selections, and John said, hey, you're picking my guys. We do share a couple of guys, and he actually picked 3 of them in a row. C.J. Johnson, Zachary Franklin, and Danny Gray. All of those guys play in offenses that move the ball, and they have been the focal point before injury. Danny Gray has been the guy when Roberson went down, but then he went down, and Rashee Rice came back. C.J. Johnson has been the guy, but then they started throwing the short passes to Tyler Snead. Zachary Franklin's been the guy when they had the quarterback from Okie State who went to UTSA. So, again, those are guys who are comfortable in being the guy. Each one of those dudes has the capability of being just as good as his Dante Wright in the 7th round. And those are 12th, 13th, and 14th round picks. So I like that. I like that trio.
I would agree with you. I would definitely have taken Zachary Wright over Dante Wright. Danny Gray, I wouldn't have, mainly because, again, I think he's one of those guys that you would have to rely on injury for him to kind of pay off, which I tend to avoid at all costs. I'm not a big guy where I'm like, that's why I really don't like the 0 RB strategy for NFL fantasy and everything, where they're just like, it'd be great if you grab Chuba Hubbard this upcoming year, because if Christian McCaffrey goes down, he's the guy. I'm like, I don't want that. I want the guy who's going to be starting and everything. Now I'll grab Chuba Hubbard later with my other picks if I have Christian McCaffrey. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. I disagree with you. I prefer Tyler Snead over C.J. Johnson this upcoming year, mainly because of the drop issues that C.J. Johnson's been having this past year, and I just think that I think they're going to be targeting Tyler more. They're going to be trusting C.J. less, because C.J. may be the more talented wide receiver. I wouldn't doubt that by any stretch of a mile. But I do think that they're going to. But I think they're going to be trusting Tyler Snead more with some of those targets. And again, in a half PPR format right here, I'd rather go with Tyler than CJ.
As CJ Johnson as a freshman ended the season with 100, 106, 85, 283, 85, and 141 yard games. And
what did he do last year?
Nothing.
Yeah.
And I think it's in his head. And again,
it could be.
I like guys that have shown me that they can have 250-yard games. Mm-hmm. And again, a string of games where he's averaged 125 yards. Much like, though, Jordan Whittington. I don't know if we're going to get that guy. If Jordan Whittington plays his best, shoot, that guy's going to be nailed. And if CJ Johnson were to play his best, he dwarfs Snead in talent.
I think that's fair.
Don't know. And that's why you get the guy in the 12th round.
Exactly.
He could be a week 2 drop, or a week 2 put in your starting lineup and keeping as your wide receiver 3 the rest of the year.
I think that, again,
Very interesting.
Yeah. Wow.
Sweet, man. Well, that was
Mitch,
fun,
that was
man. I had a good
awesome.
time.
Like I was very glad he hopped in on this again. Originally we were also going to have Kevin Brown here. Unfortunately, he had to cancel last minute, which is fine. By all means, again, we all have these things called lives that we had to take care of, and so. But I put the call out there, and you hopped in here almost immediately, and Mitch, I really can't thank you enough. This has been not only a great experience with draft, but like just listening to you, talking to you, like I could tell you've done this years longer than I have, and it's been great talking to somebody who has clearly has a lot of wisdom for this. I've learned a ton from tonight. I'm really hoping my listeners and everybody who's listening out there, you've learned a ton from Mitch tonight. I would love to have you back on whenever you can, Mitch.
I would love to be on, and I do really appreciate the opportunity to do it. And maybe next time, since I'm sure we're running long on your segment, I'll ask you, who's your favorite fantasy guy of all time? And maybe you can give me that story. So that's
we'll save that one for next time, because I'm definitely gonna have to think about that one for a good bit. I could tell you my biggest fantasy blunder, and that was just last year. But
okay, yeah, all right. Give me your blunder, and I'm gonna give you my best success story. Give me your blunder.
So my biggest blunder last year was championship week of last year, and you were talking about Corey Rucker. I literally cannot tell you what my thought process was for this, but I had Jonathan Adams on my roster. I love Jonathan Adams. He goes down with an injury for championship week, and I'm like, crap. I need to grab the next wide receiver at Arkansas State. Yep. And I'm like, you know what? Like whoever he is, he's gonna get it. Mitch, I somehow convinced myself that Brandon Bowling was gonna be the guy.
And didn't Bowling have like 2 catches for 22 yards? And
he had 2 catches for like 4 yards. I could hold on.
Yes, I remember that.
Let me pull that up. Let me pull this up.
Yes, I do remember that. My buddy picked up Bowling, and I went Rucker. I was happy I did that.
I would have been happy too. Rucker probably would have saved me that. Dude, I had such a bad championship week. Oh man, I can't even see this. Can I see the scores? I can't. Dadgummit. I wanted to see the. Wait, hold on. Yeah, there we go. So let me tell you what my fantasy, again, we're on hindsight here, but let me tell you what happened to me fantasy week last year. Spencer Rattler goes 14 points. Kyle Trask goes 32 points. 32 points, that was good. I was cool with that. Greg Bell gets 4 yards.
Okay. Not as Brees Hall.
Brees Hall gets me 27 points. I'm like, thank you, Brees. Calvin Austin, 17 points. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Calvin Austin.
I had Austin, yes.
Brandon Bowling, who, again, somehow convinced myself he was the number 1 receiver for that week for Arkansas State. He went 7 yards.
Wow.
Bailey Gaither, who the weeks before this week, he was on a roll. He went 11 points, 26 points, 8 points, 21 points, went 3.9 points that on championship week. Sean Dykes.
How many leagues do you play in?
So last year I played in 3 leagues. This year I'm clearly upping that number up a little bit.
Yeah, but I played in 3 last year too.
Yeah, I played in 3, won 1. So
okay, I played in 3. I won all my leagues last year. I haven't done that in a long time. So
Sean, I had Sean Dykes. He got me 6.6 points. But again, tight end, you can't expect much. But then again, the guy I was facing at Cole Turner, he got 18 points.
Yeah, Cole Turner was good.
He was so
had
good.
A good season. No, he had a good season.
Kobe Lewis in my flex spot got me 2.9 points.
So do you know the best fantasy tight end since fantasy has been playing in college? Do you know who had the best season?
I can't remember off the top of my head. Enlighten me.
James Casey.
All right.
Do you know him?
I do not off the top of my head. My apologies.
James Casey was the tight end at Rice University in 2008. And he is my best fantasy pick ever.
Is this your success story?
In 2008, we decided as a league to have tight ends, and I loathed it. I didn't want to do it, and tight ends were dumb. And but this was, there were a lot of tight ends. This is, Gronk back then. Just a lot of people getting buzz from these new great tight ends. So great. We're going to play tight end. I'm saying I'm going to pick my defense next to last, and I'm going to pick my tight end last. With the last pick of the second to last pick in the draft, I picked James Casey of Rice. As a tight end his freshman year. He caught 45 balls for 585 yards and 4 touchdowns.
So a solid tight end season.
Solid tight end season. Whoop-de-doo. It's a 10-man league. I picked him last. As his next season, he had 111 catches for 1,329 yards and 13 touchdowns. But see, that's not the total story. See, James Casey was also the fullback and had 57 carries for 241 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Oh my
the
God.
dude had 1,600 yards and 19 touchdowns with 111 catches. The best tight end of all time in college fantasy football. I picked him with the next to last. He was nearly Mr. Irrelevant, and I smoked the league. It was not competitive because you ain't supposed to have that with the like. You're not you if you got he was ranked like the 3rd best wide receiver, and like when you he was the 3rd best dude, and you're not supposed to have that at tight end.
No.
So when you have that, you're gonna win every time. So I just murderized the league. So that's my best pick of all time. James Casey, next to last draft. It's only dwarfed by this. My dad asked me the last pick of the draft 100 years ago. He said, "Son, I need a quarterback. Are there any starters left?" And I said, "Well, on my list there is, Dad. There's one more. I think he's going to get the nod. I don't know much about him. He played for like Northern Iowa or something, and Trent Dilfer got hurt. Why don't you pick Kurt Warner up?" and he was the fantasy MVP, and my dad picked him up after the draft. Yes.
Incredible.
Yes, there's one starter left, Dad. Let me look his name. Kurt Warner. Yeah, just pick him. So anyway, those stories are awesome. I got 1,000 of them, man. It's super cool.
I can't wait to have my own as I do this for years to come. And that is, I think, probably the most epic way to end this epically long, but also very informative, very fun. I've had a great time tonight, Mitch. And again, I can't thank you enough for coming on here. You've taught me more than I think I even taught my listeners tonight. Like, you've done a fantastic job. Having you on was a brilliant idea. And again, I'd love to have you on more. Is there anything you want to plug here before we kind of finish out here?
No, man. I got if you're into sales, I have a couple of sales books on Amazon. It's called A Month of Tips. So it gives you something to work on every day, to work on your craft, to be better, to what I call to avoid rut teens. And I try to do that in fantasy as well. That is sticking to a bad strategy and getting bad results. So it's something that you can work on every day to be a better salesperson. So that's what I do. So if you want to get on Amazon, if you're ever into sales, log in, get the book. It's super fun. But I just want to say again, thanks. Next time you want to have me on or whatever with your other boss man, y'all just let me know and I'll come in for a little guest segment. But I appreciate the time. Thanks a bunch.
Again, thank you, Mitch. And if you guys want to follow him on Twitter, he is at Ace Rule. Holes is plural. You can follow me on Twitter at CFF_Jared. You guys know, if you found this video, you can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We will have the podcast version of this special available as soon as John posts the official article for the Summa Cum Laude draft. I will also link that in the description of the podcast and the video product for this. On top of that, I'm going to also once again plug my ADP as well as ECR sheet now, available for $30. If you want to get a 50% off discount on that, you can just screenshot showing the fact that you are subscribed on YouTube, and also show us that you have left a review on Apple Podcasts. If you don't have Apple products, that's fine. You can just screenshot showing us you're following us on Spotify, and also give us a shout out on Twitter. All that can be done to get the 50% off discount. $15 for a sheet that is going to help you immensely in your drafts for this upcoming season. Under the two best things you can be for your drafts this upcoming season is prepared and flexible. As we found out tonight, I need to work on my flexibility a little bit, and with that, I'm going to be working on that with our upcoming Mock Draft Monday system that we will have going for the rest of this summer, all the way up until the season starts. Every Sunday night, every Tuesday night, I will be posting a link to a Fantrax League. Anybody can sign up. You just come in on Sunday night at 8 p.m. We will have a 45 seconds to 1 minute per picks. It'll be 16 rounds, 2 QB, 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 defense, and 6 bench spots. That's how it's going to be every single draft. It's going to be used to build up the ADP on the ADP sheet, and also give you guys great practice for this upcoming year. Thank you guys so much for listening. I know we're running really long tonight, but we had a lot of great discussion. I can't wait to do this again with you guys in the future. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you for my host, Xavier, on vacation right now. And thank you all for listening. Y'all have a fantastic day, and join us next time on Chasing the Natty.